So, let's make the most of this beautiful day. And while we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Hi, neighbor.
So y'all probably remember in the last video where we talked about the Big Four. You know, Bad Religion's first 4 albums after their reformation that cemented their legacy. Those 4 awesome records that absolutely changed the face of punk forever. The Big Four. 4. Then I only put 3 of them on the must-hear section. What gives? Well, it's because, if I'm being honest, Generator... Generator is a good record. Again, let me reiterate, like I do on every How to Get Into, just because something is on the lower tiers of this list doesn't make it bad. It just means an album may have some issues that would make it tougher to listen to for a newcomer. And with Generator, I don't know, it's almost kind of hard to even say that. I'll admit this one almost did make it to next steps for me. It's still a damn good record, all things considered. When this album does hit, oh my god, it hits so good. This record is definitely a fan favorite. Hell, some of Bad Religion's best tracks, I'd argue, are on this record. The title track is amazing, No Direction and Heaven is Falling are also terrific jams that absolutely rip live. And you know, even though this record isn't exactly a favorite of mine, the track Atomic Garden... Ooh, just easily a contender for one of my favorite Bad Religion songs, just period. This track was also the emphasis for their very first music video. And to a lot of people, this was their first exposure to Bad Religion. This was them finally stepping in with MTV. And for a lot of people, this album probably was their entry point with the band. This video, and this album as a whole, is very important. It was a vital linchpin in helping them become known to the masses. It's an important record in their discography. It really served a very vital function. But is it as good as the rest of the Big Four? See, that's the thing about this record, and a lot of the, quote, worst of Bad Religion's catalog. The worst Bad Religion albums, with a few notable exceptions, can still be pretty much just hit or miss. Like I mentioned, this record has some of my all-time favorites. Atomic Garden, Generator, Heaven is Falling, all outright bangers. But that's the thing, when this album soars, it soars. But when it doesn't, it can get kind of tepid in places. This was one of the first Bad Religion records where they decided to stray from the formula a wee bit. Well, I mean, since that last big time. We'll get to that, I promise. This record toys around with a lot more mid-tempo grooves, and the lyrics and themes tend to be much more dark and bleak than their last records were. But again, even I wouldn't say this is necessarily a bad thing. It just feels clunky on this record, you know? There's tracks like Only Entertainment, The Answer, and Two Babies in the Dark that just kinda... I mean, Two Babies in the Dark especially. Some of these lyrics.
There's a baby in your womb, so don't be scared tonight. Raggedy Ann is in the closet thinking posy.
Sir, this is a Target. While it's not bad, it still feels really rough around the edges. It's just... I don't know, it's kind of a transitional record for them. This was also the first record to feature Bobby Shayer on drums. Now, Bobby was a very good drummer, and he would go on to do excellent work on albums like Stranger Than Fiction and The Gray Race. But on this one, you can kinda tell he's still finding his bearings. If I'm being honest, Bobby is probably like my least favorite drummer this band has had. Again, he's not bad. He's not bad at all. He's a terrific drummer, actually. He's got a much more technical, focused approach to playing. That can work extremely well in certain situations, but here, I don't know, to me at least, this band has always sounded their best when they've had, like, a fucking madman behind the kit. And all that having been said, it's, still a good record with a lot of really good tracks. It's not gonna, like, turn you off of Bad Religion or anything, but it's also not one I'd immediately point people to. I mean, again, it's part of the Big Four, and compared to the rest of the Big Four, it's definitely the most odd and clunky and kind of out of place feeling. It's just really hard to have to stand up against 3 records this goddamn good, people, Still an alright record, and Atomic Garden absolutely slays. I will stand behind that 100%. I know. I'm probably gonna get some hate for throwing shade on Generator, Again, that's a fan favorite. That's one that's really important to a lot of people. And apparently I'm a glutton for punishment because I'm about to say a lot of the exact same shit about Recipe for Hate. None of you has the guts to kill me. Yeah, this is probably a bit of a spicy take. Again, this one is another big fan favorite. And also, again, I'd say this record has some of the best songs Bad Religion would ever write on it. And also, again, I'm sorry, but it's not a perfect record. Even though it shines so bright in some places, it still has some pretty noticeable problems on it, y'all. Going back to what I said about Generator, even when Bad Religion makes a record that is kind of iffy on the whole, even those records still contain some individual tracks that are absolute gems. This one has some of the best bangers they'd ever write. American Jesus is another all-time classic song, as is Struck a Nerve, another big fan and personal favorite of mine.
To close my eyes, but I
mean, fuck, y'all probably know that by now. The title track opens the record extremely strongly, and Kerosene is a nice, strange little exercise. I also particularly like the follow-up to Struck a Nerve, My Poor Friend Me, and, yeah, that's about it. Most of the worst Bad Religion albums are still at least good in pieces, and this record, its pieces are so goddamn strong, I almost get why people would forgive the whole. But this record, outside of those bright moments, it can be kind of a slog to sit through. It kind of blows its load early and doesn't really gain a lot of that momentum back. This was the follow-up to Generator 2, and they are still in that awkward transitional phase. They're trying to slip on a new skin, but you can still tell it just doesn't quite fit them yet, It just feels like an album that's got some rough edges to it. Bobby's drumming is better, but still a bit on the clunky side, and some of the more experimental moments on stuff like All Good Soldiers and Stealth. Nope, can't say I'm a fan. A lot of the things that they would try on this record, they would end up executing a lot better on future releases. This album, like Generator, just feels more like an awkward growing pain of a record. It's like puberty for them, They would eventually get there. They would eventually get to that mature sound, but the transition, like everybody's puberty,
narcotic for all low-income people not now covered.
It's pretty awkward. But again, it's hard to just write this record off because its high water moments are, again, just so high. And there was a lot of really cool stuff going on this album. This was the first big record to have multiple features on it, including Concrete Blonde's Johnette Napolitano, absolutely killing it on Struck a Nerve. John Wall and Chris Bagarozzi from Clawhammer also contributed to that guitar fuckery in Kerosene. And Eddie Vedder's here too. Hi, Eddie Vedder. No shit, Eddie goddamn Vedder is all over this record. He sings the second verse on Watch It Die, and he's one of the background singers on American Jesus. Legends supporting legends. You love to see it. But again, even though it's a huge fan favorite, I'm a little hesitant to recommend this one to brand new listeners. Dig up the singles on your own time, absolutely, but the album as a whole, I don't know, it's just rough around the edges, you know? It's just a little rough around the edges. But one thing I think we can all agree upon, it's not nearly as rough as No Substance was, right? Like, we ain't gonna argue about that one, eh? Okay, now we're starting to get into the black sheep of this band's catalog. And No Substance, I'd say this one's a pretty black sheep. Released in 1998, towards the tail end of their time with Atlantic, they took a somewhat different approach to recording this one. Usually, Greg and Brett would spend most of their time between album cycles writing and fleshing out new material, and then they would bring fully completed song ideas, basically wholly finished songs, to the studio and flesh them out a little bit and hammer them out and just record them. For this one though, Brett and Greg had been listening to a lot of the old school classic punk that they grew up on, you know, stuff like Adolescence, Stiff Little Fingers, and even some of their super old material. And they decided, you know what, let's try to record another album in the spirit of those old punk records. So instead of working out ideas meticulously over the course of a long period of in-depth thought, preparation, and trial, on this one, they were more like, fuck it, let's just wing it. And it definitely shows. I mean, people, you want to talk about a record being rough around the edges? Whew, this one's pretty rough. Even the band themselves think so. They've barely ever played anything off of this record live, and it's, not really anyone's favorite record. You know, this is just one of those albums where a lot of us like to pretend it doesn't exist. Can I be completely honest with you guys? I kinda love this one. Like, honestly, I love this record, I really do, but it is kind of in a guilty pleasure way. Like, I see its flaws, and trust me, people, it's got some big issues. I still kinda love it. I love everything about this record. I love the cover. It's so perfectly 90s edgy and skeezy and that kinda late night infomercial or late night Skinamax movie kind of way. I love the myth that was perpetuated for decades that this was Kristen Johnston on the cover. Johnston actually confirmed a couple of years ago, actually, that this, in fact, isn't her. Are you sure, Kristen? And even though a lot of the music on this has some major flaws, god damn it, honestly, a lot of this record does slap. Crazy Taxi fans will immediately recognize the opening track.
Go ahead and make a contract. Yeah.
That track is followed by another fantastic song, Shades of Truth. Some fantastic vocal harmonies going on this one. Honestly, it's kind of a shame this one didn't become a live staple, because there are a lot of songs on here that honestly would have killed in a live setting. The Biggest Killer in American History, The Voracious March of Godliness, Mediocre Minds.
Look around the country and abundance you find of mediocre minds.
Jesus, that song in particular really still seems relevant today, doesn't it? The Hippie Killers? Wait, what? Are you for real? The Hippie Killers? Okay, do you kind of get why this album has a contentious reputation now? Again, this album was almost entirely made up on the spot while they were recording. A lot of this stuff did not get time to cook or develop. There was no pre-production that went into this album. And that's the thing, as a result, a lot of these songs sound like first drafts. The band themselves have even said that if they'd spent just a little more time prepping on this one, they probably could have turned out a great record, and I don't disagree. It has moments of brilliance on it that are really, really good, but man, this may easily be one of their most undercooked records, you know? I mean, Raise Your Voice literally has the na-na doot-doo cheat lyric trick. This is the closest thing Bad Religion have ever written to, like, a jock jam.
I think this is a song we could redo in every language of every country we go to.
Yeah, Greg, how'd that turn out for you? Yeah, if anything just kills this record dead, it's the goofy as hell lyrics. And again, Bad Religion were like the opposite of that. They were known for having some of the most intelligent and cerebral lyrics in the punk landscape. Greg and Brett's songs often feel like AP courses, they're so damn rich and dense. I mean, remember those lines from Suffer in the last episode? To go from that to... Yeah, it definitely feels like a step down. And at times, even the songs that I do enjoy on this one, like Mediocre Minds and At the Mercy of Imbeciles, again, the lyrics, how do I put this? This kind of reeks of, fedora atheism. You know, that brand of atheism that's so reductive, toxic, and cynical that it is literally no better than the fundamentalist Christianity it claims to be rebelling against. I mean, I have a soft spot for this record because a lot of the melodies are really good and it's got some damn catchy choruses, but a lot of its flaws are just, man, they are really hard to ignore. At the same time, God, the brilliance is still there. The hooks are still present, the choruses are still fun as hell to sing along to, the melodies get stuck in your head like nothing else. Hell, I almost recommend you check this one out as like a hidden gem of their catalog. Again, it's by no means their best, but walk into it knowing the story behind it, temper your expectations accordingly. You can still have a fantastic time with this record. Definitely a sloppy record, but not one without its charm. No Substance is definitely a weird album, but like, it's not even close to the weirdest thing this band would ever do. Not by a long shot.
Hark the herald angels sing, chorus.
Merry Christmas, fuckers. Yeah, this exists. You'd really think it wouldn't, you know, cause, I mean, you know, this is like walking into Steve's birthday party with a t-shirt on that says "Fuck Steve." It's brilliant. It's a cool record, but this is kind of all I can say about it, you know? It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a bunch of Christmas standards, only punked up and done by a band called Bad Religion. It almost feels like it exists only to make that joke. I mean, even though this is basically just like a dumb meme, it's way better than it has any right to be. And even this album isn't without its little touches of brilliance. Their version of White Christmas?
I'm dreaming.
They crossed Irving Berlin with the goddamn Ramones. It's a Christmas miracle. Take it for what it is. You'll have a good time. And another fun fact about this one, 20% of the profits from it actually went to Survivor's network of those abused by priests. So, you know, the album at least went to charity. It raised money for a good cause. I mean, that's keeping up with the Christmas spirit. I mean, again, for as much as I go into Bad Religion being samey and them having the problem, blah, 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 when they absolutely want to, you know, they can be super multifaceted. They are all talented musicians with a lot of different skills to show off. If you want another good example of that, hell, check out some of Greg's solo work. Yeah, now we're digging really deep. Lead singer Greg Graffin has actually had 3 solo albums, and honestly, they're all pretty good. American Legion, the first one, is a bit more of a stripped-down proto-folk affair. It mostly centers around piano, acoustic guitars, and slower, more humble melodies. Despite what the cover may infer, it's actually a much more personal record than almost anything Bad Religion would ever do. Greg wrote most of this album while in the throes of a pretty messy divorce, and he basically bears his soul on this one. It's a very earnest and heartbreaking listen at times. But if you really, really want to dig deep, his other two solo records? Straight up Americana. Just full-blown country with just the slightest, teensiest tinges of rock. Honestly, Greg's got a real panache for this kind of music too. Dude does a fantastic job of maintaining the folksy, comfortable vibe of classic Americana with the urgency and bounce of rock and roll. If you're someone who, like me, used to talk a lot of trash about country music, give Cold as the Clay and Millport a spin. Honest to God, I think you'll be surprised with how well they hold up, especially if you happen to have rockier tastes. But now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get the hard part over with and get to... What do you mean? Oh fuck, Age of Unreason. Okay, this is gonna be kind of a weird conversation. Not because the album's bad, not at all. On the contrary, it's honestly pretty damn good. It did make my best of 2019 list. It's for sure an album worth checking out, but y'all, oh, see, in this video, I have to compare Age of Unreason to the rest of their catalog, and... That's not even mildly fair. Like, it's a good record, especially for a band on their 17th album, but like, put it up against Suffer, Stranger Than Fiction, Process of Belief, and I mean, it ain't on that level. I'd still say it's a strong record though. It's a fast, ferocious, and viciously topical album. Honestly, I really am kind of forced to put this in deep digging because, damn it, this band just has so much other material that you really shouldn't miss out on. There just isn't any other good place for this one, you know? But again, just because it's here in deep digging, don't write it off. If you're the type of person who just has to hear the latest thing a band puts out first, I don't think you'll be disappointed by this or anything, but like I mentioned, this is the only record I also can't fit comfortably into a particular era. It marks the first in a potential new era for this band, and since there's only one record in it, again, because I'm uncreative, we'll just call this the shakeup era, because holy shit! The fact that it is so good is kinda shocking, because the band went through, well, like the name implies, a really big shakeup during this period. After True North, longtime guitarist Greg Hetson left the band due to some issues going on in his personal life. And after the Christmas Songs EP, Brooks Wackerman left to pursue other projects. The band lost their literal legend guitarist and one of the best drummers in the world still working right now, you know? That is a pretty hard loss for any band to recoup. But new drummer Jamie Miller of Snot and You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead fame, and new guitarist Mike Dimkich from The Cult have definitely earned their stripes on this one, I'd say. Though they seemed like odd choices at first. I mean... This doesn't sound like Bad Religion, but overall they did a pretty fantastic job. Again, just showing that there is almost nothing that can keep this band down. Whatever the band may have in store for the future, I am definitely looking forward to it. And hey, once you get through a lot of the other classics here, this one is also a fun one to check out. I wouldn't say it's a mandatory listen or anything, and it signifies a kind of weird, unshaky, as yet unrepresentative style of Bad Religion sound. Still a fun little time, though. Okay, now that we've talked about Age of Unreason, can we move on with the rest of the video? You're okay with that? Okay. Hey, Doc. The bat is talking to me again. I mean, look, we aren't gonna spend a ton of time on this. What more can I say about this one that I haven't already said? It's bad, like crazy bad. Hell, I spent an hour on this album alone in one of my cringy older videos. I mean, look, I am beyond grateful that y'all enjoy a lot of my classic stuff, but like, come on, even I can admit some of this hasn't aged well.
I speak of none other than the vile, the contemptuous, the bane of insanity.
Oh, stop that. Stop that, you cringy little fuck. Channel Awesome is never going to hire you, and believe me, homie, you dodged a bullet with that one. I think I'll just go ahead and point y'all to this particular video, you know, for the big graphic breakdown. It's old and kinda at times, but it's still worth a watch. I cover all the important stuff. But the too long didn't watch version, okay, let's do that. One day, Greg Graffin buys himself a fancy new synthesizer, and despite being in, you know, a punk band, Greg convinces his good buddy Brett to make their next album a derpy, dated prog rock conceptual record. Since they were still basically dumb high schoolers who didn't know how to properly play, record, or master prog music, it sounds like a wedding band trying to do Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They basically got laughed out of the scene for a good long while after this record. Yeah, these guys tried to make a prog rock record. Yeah, people, this one's rough. But you know, I'll reiterate what I said in my older video. I still find this record just fascinating, and I still do feel like it deserves to exist. It's one of the greatest examples of the sophomore slump to have ever been made, and if anything, it just speaks to how great this band actually is, that they could come back from something like this. Any other band? Hell no, this is a career killer, but Bad Religion is just built different, y'all. Oh my goodness. If anything, this just puts an extra sheen of polish on Suffer, doesn't it? These guys went from making one of the most hilarious disasters of the 80s to literally reinventing the entire punk genre overnight. People, again, Suffer is just that good. It was able to wash the taste of this out of people's mouths. Like, it's a bad record, but it is fascinatingly bad. It's a bad record with a great story behind it. And I hate to say it, but I'd almost recommend you listen to it just to marvel at its existence. Come on, put it on streaming, you cowards! It's a record that is interesting, but as just a piece of music, oh boy. And for first-time listeners, no. Please, no. I beg you, no. Not even for the memes, damn it, you fucking cynical fucking... You're not clever, you're not funny, you're not unique just because, haha, I did the bad thing because he told me not to do the bad thing. You're not clever, Kyle, you're a fucking moron. Suffer. Is the album bad? Yeah. But even then, it's charmingly bad. It's interestingly bad. It's amusingly bad. New America, on the other hand... New America is just hard to talk about, you know? It's a pretty bad record, but it's not like Into the Unknown, where it's fascinatingly bad. It's just very... Oh, it's a very strange note in their discography. For one, this thing goes in way too many weird directions. It gets very poppy and very folky in places, particularly on songs like A Long Way to the Promised Land and 1,000 Memories. It even touches on country with stuff like There Will Be a Way, but not like in the good way that Descent of Man or Greg's solo stuff would. It's just kinda like,
There'll be me, there'll be you, there'll be a way.
oh, what else can I say? It's very half-hearted, very passionless. That's really the best way to describe this record. Passionless. There is just no goddamn heart in this record. And given what was going on behind the scenes during this one, I completely understand why that is. This was the first record to be completely written by Greg alone, with no help from anyone else in the band. Whew, buddy, if you missed Brett's presence on the other albums, you are going to beg for him to come back on this one. This record, like Greg's first solo album, was written while he was in recovery mode from his divorce, so a fair amount of the tracks on here deviate from Bad Religion's usual MO, i.e. fiery socio-political commentary, to give us a more personal kind of songwriting style. And again, it's not like Greg can't do that. His solo records are perfect examples of him doing that well. But songs about like divorce and childhood trauma...
No one gave a damn if I was there or away. If I died and went to hell, they'd throw a party on my grave.
Yeah, man, it's a rough fit, and it caused the album to go into some very misguided directions. The other very big fatal flaw on this album was Greg hiring his longtime childhood idol, Todd Rundgren, to produce. Now, that may seem like a weird choice, and it is, but on paper, actually, it's not the worst of ideas. Rundgren actually does have a fairly celebrated track record as a producer, and he's even had a few punk and post-punk credits under his belt, with acts like the New York Dolls and XTC. So, I get why this might have made sense in his head at the time. Hey, if you have the chance to work with one of your childhood idols, who happens to also be a really banging producer, why the hell not, right? They hired Todd on to help them produce the record, and it sucked. He was often aloof, standoffish, and just kind of a great big asshole to everyone involved, including Greg, especially to Greg, apparently. He specifically knew that Greg was like a childhood idol, so because he knew that, he specifically treated him like an asshole. Like, my God, poor Greg. Can you even imagine? You finally get the chance to work with your childhood idol. It turns out he's a gigantic dick. Rundgren put the band through hell, and this record just sounds like it was a small nightmare to make. And when I listen to it, yeah, I just hear a bunch of guys who would rather be anywhere else. It's a long, slow, dull, plodding listen. I know that everyone says Into the Unknown is this band's worst album, and I get why, but in my opinion, oh, this one is way worse. At least Into the Unknown has a good story. At least Into the Unknown can give you a few good laughs. This one, it's just dumpy and dull. I'm sorry, but this is worse than anything on Into the Unknown. Fight me. But like, if this record here is the absolute worst thing they've ever done, if this is the bottom of the barrel, I mean, even then, all that really does is highlight just how amazing this group is. In 41 years, this band has released so much insanely good music and only faltered on the rarest of occasions. The band has taken a lot of turns, but they've never been completely boring. In fact, most of the time, they've been straight up brilliant. From their days as bratty teenagers, to their time spent reinventing the genre, to their years in the mainstream, to their continued renaissance and beyond. Not only have they made some of the most influential music out there, they're still making it. That's what's so insanely impressive. They aren't showing any signs of slowing down anytime soon. There aren't many bands who make it to 40 years, let alone bands who are able to stay this good after that much time. But Bad Religion, they've been going against the grain since 1980, and even if you could say they have the problem, or that stuff sounds samey or whatever, if the ground they walk on seems well trodden, it's really only because these were the guys who helped pave it. This might not be everyone's thing, this might not strike a chord for you, but if it does, then holy cow, you have an absolute treasure trove of wonderful music to discover. And hopefully I've been able to help you out a little bit along the way. I'm Crash Thompson, and I will see you in the next video.